Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and what your background is?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Lauren. I use she, her pronouns. I am originally from the San Francisco Bay Area in California, but I recently moved to North Carolina because my partner is in law school currently at Duke. So I just had a cross-country move, which is kind of interesting. My background, I graduated this past June from UC San Diego with a degree in environmental policy and some minors in law and French literature. So I speak a little French, which is a fun fact. And now I'm getting ready to apply for the second time to law school.
Also, oh my God, I didn't know that your background was environmental policy. I'm a poli-sci student. That's so funny.
Oh,
And that you speak French too. That's cool. This is another person I'm trying to get to visit Canada. Why don't you tell us a bit, like you're a reapplicant, when did you first start studying for the Lsat in general?
So I first started studying in my junior year of college. So I guess that would have been kind of beginning of 2020, like right before the pandemic hit. I studied, but I wasn't like super motivated to study because I'm one of those people who has always just crammed for everything. This is the first time that I had ever had to put myself on a schedule, had to like really grind hard for like months on end. And I wasn't used to that kind of structure. And so it was really hard for me when I initially started studying to like pick it up and then not put it down for 2 weeks before trying again. And so I would say like my first few months of studying weren't fully all in. And then I think as I started taking practice exams, I was like, oh wait, I kind of need to put more effort into this. I need a schedule. I need to start actually like probably paying for some resources to help me stay on track. And so I'd say like all in all, before I ever took the LSAT, I studied really hard for like maybe 5 or 6 months, but it should have probably been longer than that.
I mean, that's still long. And I think that shows too, and like I know Nicole says this, that like your first month like really doesn't count because you really don't know what you're doing, how to tackle it. It's so overwhelming with how many tests there are. But I'm the same as you. Like I dabbled with it, but because it's so new to everyone, I think it's hard to stick to at the beginning.
Yes, I fully agree. And as like a procrastinator, it was just so overwhelming.
And then what did you wish you knew like when you were starting out? I think this is really important because so many people, like we said, it's so new. They don't know kind of like any advice for when you're starting out.
Yeah, I wish I knew that like it was okay for certain study materials to not work for me. I think I was really stubborn in the beginning and like if I'm supposed to be good at this test, then like this book I bought and this online course I bought should be really clicking for me, when at times I was very confused by some of the study materials I was using. So they just didn't really cater to my learning style. And they didn't cater to like how I wanted to be coached through the LSAT. Like I think a lot, for example, like I used 7 Sage, I used their course and I really, really like it. And there were times when I felt like the person teaching was like, if you don't get it this way, then you're just not gonna get it. And like, that was really discouraging. And so I wish I had known like, it's okay to have a different learning style and a different approach, and you can still get good at the test. And it's okay to disregard some of the information you're given, because no one person can tell you how you're supposed to feel about a certain topic or how you're supposed to learn it. And so it's okay to kind of use a variety of resources and also like be really picky about what works for you, and don't let someone else tell you that because one study practice doesn't work for you that you're just never going to get it.
Yeah, I really like that advice because I think like books were such a big thing. I feel like, at least with myself, I don't know if you're the same, like the first thing I did was look at like the Power Score textbooks.
Yeah.
And I'm just not the type of person who can sit there and read like big books without like at least deadlines, like, oh, you have to read chapter 2 by this day. So I remember being super discouraged because I'm like, this person did the books and scored like a 165 in 3 months. Like, why am I not getting that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you really like Seven Sage? I personally have never really used it.
Okay, yes, I have an up and down relationship with Seven Sage. I have paid for the monthly subscription and canceled it so many times because I would like study and then I would take the test and then I was like, oh, I don't like my score, so I'd repurchase. I did that like 3 separate times. I liked having their service. I feel like it's one of the more affordable ones out there because you pay a monthly rate and as soon as you're done with it, you're done with it and you don't have to pay up front like hundreds of dollars to use it. And I just used their like most basic package. So I got like access to their videos on different question types and drills, and then like they would do all the analytics for the practice tests, which I really like. Like they would score they would store like all of your scores on your account so you could see how linearly or not linearly you were progressing. Yeah, and then they would like also tell you how hard the question types that you were missing were and like provide explanations for literally every question on the practice test, which is amazing. So I really liked the resources. I wouldn't say that their explanation videos were always the best for me, especially with logic games, because I found that the way that I like to diagram for those is just not the way they were teaching. And so like I always felt like they could use me, especially with logic games, sometimes with LR as well. But a lot of times it would also help things click for me. Like if I kept missing a certain question type, I could go back and watch their lessons about certain LR questions and like it would help me the next time I came across a similar question do better than I did last time.
Oh, okay, yeah, that seems to be what a lot of people are like attracted to about them, is like the analytics, from my understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And they also have a lot of resources for admissions and like, especially with the US schools, like all the medians, like what advice people who have gotten in have, all this stuff. So
oh, okay, that's helpful.
I appreciate that part of it too.
So were they one of your favorite resources, or do you have any favorites?
I would say Seven Sage was kind of my go-to. I wish that I had played around and tried other services just to compare so I could have like a really solid comparison to make, but it was really the only thing online that I used before I found RGC. So it was like one of the only things I have experience with. I will say that I'm not a huge textbook person, but if someone were looking for a book, I would recommend the Lsat Trainer by Mike Kim. That book was the most readable book that I had on the Lsat, and I thought it was like very well done. The drills were very strategically placed and very helpful. I felt like I was able to supplement my Seven Sage learning with that pretty well. And then the cherry on top was really getting a tutor with RGC.
So then with RGC, any materials specifically that we've made that you really liked?
I loved having access to the LRBT documents. I think I had never like forced myself to do practice sets of my hardest LR question types. And so when Nicole was like having me drill from there, like that really helped me see my patterns with certain question types. And then also just like her little videos on like different question types and like the playlist she's working on with explanations for all the questions. Like she's really doing the most, and I really appreciated like that side of it, the homework assignments, the accountability, just like having another woman help me through the LSAT, because I do think that the study materials out there are really catered towards like the white cis straight man.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, having a woman-owned business produce materials that work well, not just for women, but like with women in mind, is really important.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think like the videos that Nicole makes are like they break it down a little bit easier, because I found, at least like with myself, if I ever was like, I used Demon and sometimes I'd watch their video explanations, but I was like, if you weren't a Demon student, because they're recordings from like classes that they taught, like if you didn't pick up on some of their nuances or terms, then like you were at a disadvantage in understanding it. And like I know you can leave comments and all that, but it's like if I wanted to know what was happening now, I felt like Nicole's videos, similar to you, like they were just more catered to me and just to like women and like all people in general, and just so much more accessible. I think what RGC offers is a ton for what you pay for, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the pricing, like I don't feel like you can beat it really, especially when you get access to like all the video content on top of just your tutoring. It's like it goes way beyond just getting your hour session in, and I think it's so great that like we have this resource and that you're able to share it.
Yeah, as long, like on top of like the accountability, I was the same as you. I'm like, I need someone to tell me like this is due.
Yeah.
And then so with your resources too, like in your timeline, how often did you study? Were you consistent with like 5 hours a day or like 3 days a week? What was your own study plan?
It kind of went back and forth because I was taking it while being a full-time university student, and then there were like I had jobs in between there, and like so there were definitely times where I had more free time than others. I would say when I had the most free time, I would study. I would try to do like 3 hours a day and give myself at least 1 day off per week. The day off is super important. At least for me, I need to take a day off when I'm studying for something long term. I need something to look forward to. And I also have found like the importance of like resting my brain so that I can, you know, come back in with like a more fresh mind and soak up more information. But then during the times when I was studying, when I was also in school, it was like pretty infrequent. It was hard to get myself to do work on top of, you know, finishing college.
That's a lot on your plate.
I would try my best to like, if I had a school day where I had a class and then a gap and then a class, I would try to fill that gap with Lsat and then, you know, devote more of my evening times, excuse me, to doing like my homework and stuff. So I would try to be like, okay, I have 2 hours in between my classes. Let me try to do some Lsat. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But if I could do it over, if I had like really wanted to get my goal score before, like if I had known more, I probably would have tried to study a bit more than I did.
Yeah, I feel like even with myself when I was in my last year of school and I remember some of my friends applying, I was just like, I have no clue how, on top of like midterms and like with assignments, especially here in Canada with it all being due November, like that's a big midterm season for us, and like they were taking the October exam. I remember just being like kudos to you. There's no way, maybe it's my time management skills that need work, that I could have done something, even like what you're like, just to introduce it while you're in school, I think is impressive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it definitely wasn't the best. Like I think had I known that it would have been better for me to just apply this year instead of last year, I would have just put this off, because I ended up taking the Lsat twice while I was still in college, and it just didn't go super great for me. So yeah, I think if I could do it again, I would have just taken the gap year and wouldn't have been so stubborn about it, because I'm still taking it anyway.
Yeah, it's such a learning experience, this whole thing too, right? And I like that you mentioned the break thing, because I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough. Like, at least with myself when I was in school, like breaks were important. I'd be like, hey, I'll take the night off. But like with this, it's like, I need more than just the night off. Like I deserve 1 or 2 days.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is like one of the most challenging things I have ever done. And I think a lot of people can say the same, in that it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, like having to study for so many months and sit for a really long and like just tiring for your brain exam. And yeah, I think like I have never been mentally tired the way I have been with the Lsat. And I think it is so important to take care of yourself and let yourself look at something else for at least a day every week.
Like not even think about it. That was like a struggle
Yes.
with myself. Was
Yes, exactly. Like, don't worry about it. Like, do something that you enjoy and then come back a day later. It's not going to make a huge difference if you don't study 7 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. I think like seeing improvement in this kind of stuff is not like, oh, if I study for 4 more hours, I'll improve 5 points. Like it takes time. So like you should be rewarding yourself to take those 5 hours off and think about something else. Like don't give yourself heck for not studying.
Yes, honestly, like I don't know. My biggest advice is like take better care of yourself. Like if you're like me and you want to be like, oh, I wasn't as focused, I'm gonna punish myself by doing an extra hour. Don't do that. It's not worth it. If you're not focused that day, you're not focused that day. Just gotta try again the next day.
Yeah, it's essentially prep for practicing to take care of yourself before you even get to law school, because it's just going to become as important then.
Yes. Yes. And I'm living with 2 law students right now, and I can fully say that like you need to know how to take care of yourself and how to put yourself on a good study schedule, because I've seen the ups and downs of navigating that as a law student. So it's very practical to know how to do that.
Yeah, I feel like it's essentially like it's preparing us in the sense of like thinking like a lawyer, but even like almost I guess the lifestyle of a law student, like studying, how often you're going to need to study, the stress of it all.
Yeah.
So the next question we want to ask is what was your diagnostic score?
All right, so I feel like my like journey with the Lsat is a bit unique in that I started with a 160 diagnostic because I did some general reading about the sections before I ever took the test. So it wasn't like completely blind. Like I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. And then after getting my diagnostic, I stayed around the 160s for like a really long time. And it was super frustrating because like I didn't even get past like a 163 until I was like at least 6 months into studying. So it wasn't like I started a 160 and I just linearly improved. It was like I started a 160 and then even though I was studying so much, I didn't improve that much, because I think when you get up to that level, it's really hard to even go up 1 point.
Yeah.
And with the study materials I was using, like I wasn't doing it frequently enough when I first started to really get that 160 level of improvement that you need. Like you need to study for a lot of hours just to get that extra point or two. And so that was what was really discouraging about it for me at the beginning, was like I started at a pretty high percentile. Like I should be able to get up there with like the very top scorers, and I just wasn't doing it. And I was like paying for resources and like spending a bunch of time, and it wasn't clicking. And so I think it was really hard for me to keep going, especially after my first 2 exams where I was still in the 160s with my score, because I was like, is this really like my peak? Like, is this all I can do? And then when I was deciding to take it a 3rd time, I was like, I feel like I need someone to really like cater my learning to me specifically, rather than using a resource that anyone can use. And so that's when I met Nicole and started doing like personal tutoring. And that really, really helped me realize like what the little things that I was doing that were consistently causing me to mess up in certain sections. And that's when I was able to finally get over the hump and start scoring in the 170s, which was awesome.
If you had to credit like Nicole's like one piece of advice that really pushed you, do you have one in mind?
I think with me, I was like very set on like getting to 170 as fast as I possibly could. And I was not interested in slowing down and like analyzing like what I was doing wrong. I just wanted like a magic thing to fix it. And I think she really encouraged me to like slow down. She didn't hit me right off the bat with timed assignments or anything. She was like, do this untimed, really think about your answers before you like mark them down. like really spend time with it. Don't worry about timing. And I think like that was the first time I was told it's okay to slow down. Like you're not doing everything for time all the time. And that really helped me catch myself making mistakes. And I think that was like a real turning point for me, was like being able to catch myself making mistakes, and then also giving myself time to like talk myself through why I was picking certain answer choices, or like asking myself, like, do you really understand this stimulus or this question type, or are you just trying to get through it so you can move on? And so she really helped me deal with that. Like, it's okay to do things untimed. And like another small thing that really helped was that like she really gave me confidence. Like she validated me right from the start. She was like I don't know, I had never really felt like anyone I was getting resources from was like, you're good at this. They were just kind of like, you need to get better at this. And it was never like a, you can do this. And she right off the bat was like, you're a high scorer. I can tell you're really smart. Like you can absolutely do this. And I think like hearing that from someone like changed things for me, even though it was just such a small thing. Cause like for the first time I was like, I should have confidence doing this because I'm competent and I've been working hard and I know how to do this stuff. I just need to like slow down and fine tune.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like so key too, and I love that about Nicole, is celebrating like the small wins. This whole process is so discouraging. Like even when I remember myself, like I was like PTing here and then I like did one test and I dropped, and it's like, what the heck? Like it's like, yeah, but that happens. And she's just, that was the same with myself. And even what you said about like the slowing down, it was like, oh, 35 minutes is nothing. And like with the time that it takes to do questions and reading those stimuluses, like they're meant to be challenging. That was the same with me. Like that piece of advice helped, but I think the confidence bit is like not talked about enough. Yeah,
I think, and like as a tutor, what I really like to bring into my like tutoring is like, yeah, celebrate that you got that question right when you had been struggling with those, or like don't say that it's hard because you're not good at it. It's because like you're working it out, you're figuring it out still, and like that's totally okay. And just like being there emotionally for each other during this journey is so important too. Like on top of the studying, you need people who are going to cheer you on.
Yeah. And I think that goes with like, I remember you mentioning this before, like just from knowing you, but like community is big too with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like the idea of like, just even with like working, both of us working at RGC, like the friendships that I've made coming out from this, like even though we all live in like completely different places, like it's just cool to think like I have like a friend that lives in North Carolina, I have a friend that lives in New York. Like I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I love the community aspect.
My Canadian friend base is really growing.
I love being the only Canadian and I have all these American friends. And then, so I guess another thing too is like motivation, I think, is hard because this process is so long. So what for you worked for keeping motivated?
Okay, so this is like probably not the best advice, but I am a competitive person, and so I was motivated by the fact that like I had peers and friends, and also my partner also applying to law school. And so when I decided not to go last year, I was like, well, I don't want to be more than a year behind. And like that's silly. If it takes me more than a year, it takes me more than a year. If I do it when I'm 30, I do it when I'm 30. But like for me, there was a little motivation in that I want to get my Lsat score up so that I can go this coming school year, 2022. Because like for me, that's a goal that I have. But aside from me being ridiculous and competitive, I think the motivation for me has come from like just wanting to prove to myself that I can achieve what I wanted to achieve. I think I am very determined in that like I don't like to stop until I feel satisfied, which, you know, sometimes you can't get that, but I was like, I need to put in the work because I want to prove to myself that I can meet a goal that I set for myself. And then, you know, having people cheer me on through that was like the most meaningful thing. Like being like, yeah, you absolutely can do it, and you're selling yourself short if you don't try really hard at least. So the motivation came kind of towards the second half of my studying journey, where I was like, yeah, I'm about to take it for the third time. I really need to get up there and do what I know that I can do given my practice tests and how hard I've worked. And so I think that kind of motivated me into like working extra hard right before my third test.
Yeah, I feel like what you said at the beginning is real though too. Like maybe not everybody wants to admit that part, but that makes sense. I mean, for myself, like I loved living like at school outside of my family, and like I loved that independence. And with COVID moving back, that's been a motivator. I want my independence, my space back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I think there's those reasons too, on top of proving it for yourself.
yeah. Okay, I feel a little bit better now that I'm not just like outing myself as like.
No, you're not alone there by any means. the second reason, more importantly, but the first one there.
Yes, the takeaway from this is that I wanted to make myself proud, and then other than that, I had other reasons. But like that's the main point here.
Yeah, exactly. That's my main conclusion. And then what of all your resources was a waste of time or a waste of money? Like this whole process is expensive as hell. So if there was any advice that like where not to spend money, or at least like in your case, what would you say?
I would say again, books. I got overexcited at the beginning and I bought like 4 books that I never touched. The only book that I truly read was Lsat Trainer. And then I got like a specific logic games book because I was like, oh, that seems like it's gonna be hard. I'll buy logic games. I got like 2 other, like, I got a PT book when you can just do them online, which I thought was dumb of me after that. And I also got like a general LSAT book that I don't think I ever opened for more than 5 minutes. So for me, like if you're someone who's easily distracted or someone who like doesn't do well with long periods of just reading, I would say like go for more interactive resources, either through classes and tutoring or like the online stuff with like more practice in between the reading or like videos to watch. Because for me, like looking at this 500-page book was just overwhelming and I never ever wanted to open it. So, and then I ended up just like flushing that money down the toilet essentially. So save those money for your applications because those are expensive. I'm in it right now.
I know, I said the same thing in my video, was books, I believe, and it was so funny. I resold some of the LSAT books I bought, and like the person was like, oh, why are you selling them? I was like, I'm still studying. Like they just didn't work for me. And this person that purchased my books, she was a super big like bookworm, like that was her method of style, and I was like, they're great, like they work for people. I just unfortunately was not one of them. But yeah. I feel the same. I feel like if anything, because this material is so new, if you could find the chance to like go to a class, like a $20 class, just to sit in and see what it's like, and if you didn't like the environment, then maybe do books. Like yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying like if anyone in my life asked me like where do I start, I would probably say like go to an entry-level class, because like I think that's the best setting in which you can learn this stuff. Go to a class that assigns you homework, because then you'll actually do stuff. Yeah, like our boot camp. And then any last thoughts, any advice in general that more people should know?
I don't know. I just want to say that like the LSAT is really hard and you should not beat yourself up if things aren't going the way you want them to right now. You will get there. And also, if you're part of our community or you want to be, like, we will be there to support you. And 100%. I'm really happy to be a part of RGC and have all the friendships that I have because of it. And also just to like support other people who are just really trying to get to law school, because that's pretty much all of our goals at the end of the day, and you can totally do it.
Yeah, I think like what you were saying, like community is so important with this, because people who haven't applied for law school truly have no idea what this process is like. And yeah, working with RTC and working with you has been phenomenal because you have that kind of support system of people who've been through it, doing it with you, all of that.